Hi, I'm Liv and welcome back to the Book Nook. So this is going to be a bit of a catch-up video and a bit of a wrap-up video. I'm going to try and squeeze everything in, but I apologise in advance if it's too long. Hey guys, so long time no see. I've not done a video for well over a month now. I've mainly been in a pretty slumpy place, both in terms of mental health and my reading, and things are picking up again in terms of life. Not so much the reading side of things, that's still pretty slumpy, but we'll get into that. But life is chugging along. The main exciting change that has happened in life is that there is a local independent bookshop in Exeter that opened last December pre-lockdown, and obviously was trading through lockdown, and they've been going from strength to strength since things have started opening up again. I've been sort of chatting with them a little bit, and they mentioned they were hiring. Went and had a little chat with them the other week, and I'm gonna be selling books again. I am so excited. I cannot tell you just how excited I am, and grateful for them giving me a shot, but I'm just so excited to get back selling books, working with books again. I think I've realised over the last 12-18 months just how much I miss working with books, and I think that's kind of why I haven't been maybe like as active on BookTube and like Bookish Twitter. I think I've had this weird kind of disconnect where, now I know there are some booktubers who don't work with books, either in a bookshop or publishing or what have you, and still do BookTube, but I think for me, BookTube became such an extension of my working with books that it all just kind of became this part and parcel of the same thing. And when I stopped working with books, obviously a lot of the other reasons I kind of stepped back from BookTube was, you know, stuff going on in my personal life that I wasn't really here for it, but for the last 12-18 months, doing BookTube videos and engaging with like Bookish Twitter, Bookish Instagram and all of this hasn't felt as organic. It's almost felt in a weird way like I haven't had as much of a right to engage as much with that kind of online bookish community because I'm not working with books. And I know that makes no sense at all. And as I say, I know there are plenty of people who are engaged with the bookish community online that don't work with books every day. But for me as a personal thing, it just kind of felt like I was in this weird limbo where I'm still so enthusiastic about books and want to talk about books and want to read books, but I wasn't working with them, so I kind of felt like I didn't have that in anymore. And as I say, it's no reflection on the bookish community online for like making me feel like I was on the outside at all. Nothing kind of intentional that anyone was doing or saying or what have you. It's me. It's been in my kind of brain and whatnot that feeling slightly on the outside has meant that I haven't felt like I can step in. Realising how much I miss talking to people about books face to face as well. Like, this is great, and talking to people on Twitter about books is great, but as I say, I've had that disconnect and not felt quite as able to. But it's like, even when I go into, you know, insert brand name of supermarket here, and I have a little look at the books, if I'm standing there and somebody's looking at a book and I know I've read it or I've heard really good things, I'll even tell them there, and it's kind of like, I don't know, there's like this bookseller bit in me that just has been laying dormant for all sorts of valid reasons for a while, that's just been waking up again. It's coming out of hibernation and it wants to do. So when Bookbag posted that they were hiring, I had to get in touch, and they seem like such a great team. I will talk more about them in the future and more about the shop and what have you. It's still very early days, but I am just so excited to be working with books again, talking to people face to face, recommending books, doing stuff in the bookish community. I think it will solve for me that internal kind of disconnect between what I'm interested in and what I'm doing or not doing, and I'm just so excited. And I'm hopeful that this is kind of mark a bit of a change for me. I know that over lockdown lots of people have been struggling with mental health, and for me, you know, I chose to leave the bookshop and take some time for me after my dad died, and then with circumstance and what have you, I felt like I was just getting ready to get back out into the world, and COVID happened, and I have really struggled more so as things have been opening up with this kind of rootless feeling, lack of kind of foundation, feeling really wobbly, not really knowing what I'm doing, who I am, what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing, all the kind of semi-existential stuff that I've mentioned before about coming up to 30 and all of those feelings. So I'm hoping that having something to do, not just in terms of, you know, working for money and the self-esteem that will come with that, but just having more of a focus and doing something that I love doing. I love selling books, I love working with books, I love talking to people about books, and I get to do it again. So that's really exciting. I have also started doing some freelance projects, sort of administrative assistant type stuff, which is also kind of another part of my life that I really like doing. I like facilitating and enabling people, so that's been really fun. So I'm hopeful that both in terms of my mental health and in terms of my reading, things are going to go on an upward swing again. I'm not going to put pressure on myself for those things to happen and to happen now, because we've all been in this, I don't know, everything feels very heavy and depressing at the moment. I know that for me, I'm still quite hesitant and nervous about things opening up, but I also recognise that, you know, we need to, and all of this, but for the vulnerable people, blah, blah, all of that. I'm not going to get into a whole COVID discussion, but the point is, mental health is a tricky bastard, and I'm back in more regular therapy, and that's really helpful, and I have no shame actually in admitting that. I think part of me a little while ago might have done and feel like a failure, but no. I think something that probably most of us have learned is that solitude and only having yourself for company and not having a focus, something to do, be it, you know, professionally or just in terms of leisure and things to do, you can just end up feeling so disconnected, and you end up retreating so much inside yourself, and one can only sustain oneself by oneself for so long, and I don't know why I turned into the queen there, but that happened. And then you get to a point where it's really hard to kind of step out into the world again, not just in terms of the logistics of everything at the moment, but mentally it becomes really hard. It's akin to sort of asking for help, and not even just asking for help, but just being in contact with other humans again. I haven't really done that for a very long time. I've had a very, very small circle. I've always been someone who's had quite a small circle. Anyway, tangent, rambling. The point is that I am actually, for the first time in quite a while, actually starting to feel a little bit hopeful. I'd been feeling a little hopeless and very unmoored, and I am hopeful that doing something I love is gonna not fix it. I've got to fix myself and not think of myself as broken. Basically, I'm really excited for all sorts of reasons, and this has turned way more rambly and into a bit of a therapy session, but honesty about stuff, I think, is something we all stand to benefit from. So that's kind of my mental health and life, job, what have you covered. Reading has been hard lately. I've been trying to kind of reflect on my reading over the year, and then a year feels like we're 6 months into 2017. No, we're 7 months in. Well, we've had 6 months. Oh God, it's turning into that how old is he, 18 or 19 thing. We're a number of months definitely proportionate to halfway through 2021 already. How the fuck did that happen? And this feeling of time, my reading over the last 6 months, 12 months, 18 months has been, as I've mentioned before, very sporadic, and I'm not going to be alone in that. I'm not unique in that sense. But for the last 6 months, definitely for the last 3-4 months, I have found it a lot harder. My attention span is like this big, and I've been so bad for being glued to my phone for way more of the day than I should be. When my phone comes up with that like weekly average screen time thing, it's depressing. And I know that's part of what I was saying before, you know, not having enough to do, and hopefully that's going to change, but also just the kind of self-discipline to get off your fucking phone. I don't know about you guys, but I found it so much easier lately, or not even easier, just kind of, it's become habit to just be doom scrolling again, and I feel like I did that at the beginning of the pandemic a lot more, and then I got better, and now I seem to be getting worse again. And that has contributed to my attention span shrinking. I know from when I have been able to read a book, or when I've kind of made myself sit down with a book for a while, that I've enjoyed it and that I have really got into it, and I think it's just making the effort and having the discipline to actually sit and read, because I know that sitting and reading a book is so much healthier for me for a myriad of reasons than doom scrolling. There's definitely something to be said for having a dumb phone, isn't there? I don't want this video to become overlong and stupid, crazy long, so I'm just going to go quickly through the books that I have read in the last 2 months, and yeah, how few of them are. The first book I read since my last video is one that I've been trying off and on to read for quite a while now, and that is Deborah Levy's Swallowing Geography. Now, when I picked this book up to sit and film the wrap-up, I looked at it and I thought, I can't remember what happens at all. I can a bit more now that I flick through it, and I do remember that I really enjoyed it, and Deborah Levy's writing is, I mean, you know from previous videos, Deborah Levy's writing is someone whose writing I very much enjoy. I'm getting very wordy and very fast and take a breath. It deals with a young woman called JK, and it's a lot of her relationship with her mother, relationship with other people, relationships with geography and travel and location and rootlessness and all of this. And although it feels like it didn't stick in my memory, I know that I very much loved it, and the lack of sticking in my memory is more to do with the way my brain is at the moment, not a reflection on the book. It was really good. I think if you like Deborah Levy, you'll really like it, and you should read it. That was all one breath. Then I read a book that I've seen talked about on YouTube and the Twitters for a long... Oh my god, how old am I? I'm not 30 yet. I've seen it talked about a lot, and I've meant to read it for a long time, and that is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal Al-Mutar and Max Gladstone. This is a really interesting book. It's kind of a queer love story set in the future where these people are kind of time travelling, and they leave notes and messages to each other as they travel through time. They're from two separate kind of camps. It's kind of like a, I don't know, like a Juliet and Juliet space opera thing, and I really, really dug it. Jeez, now I've turned into 30 years old in the 80s, what? It had the slightly kind of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, slightly metatextual thing that I really, really dig. what is with Dig all of a sudden, that I really enjoyed, and I loved the kind of intertextuality of it and very, very much recommend this one. Then I sat of an evening and read 3 graphic novels. This is the Heathen series of graphic novels that is by Natasha Altiseri, and this is also being turned also being turned into a film, I believe, which is very, very exciting. So I had a little Norse evening to myself and sat and read these. Now, I did have some problems with it to start with. There were a few kind of not necessarily like the Norse elements. I think that for me the beauty of kind of Norse history and Norse mythology and Viking mythology and all of this is you can be playful with it, personally. Gatekeepers be damned. Some of the problems I had initially, particularly in the first one, were more to do with the kind of graphic novel, what's the word I'm looking for? Conventions of women's outfits. The main character basically like wears a bikini all the time, and I was a little bit like, okay, why? And reading it from a kind of a female author and female artist and stuff, I was a little bit like, this is a little bit disappointing. It did then go some ways in the second one to addressing that and rationalising it as this Viking clan, they don't wear armour and that shows their strength, and the less they actually wear, the stronger they are. So I was kind of like, yeah, okay, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, but part of me was a little bit like, okay, could that not have been, even rationalised, could that not have been a trope that was stepped away from? But other than that, like, there's a talking horse, there's a Valkyrie in there who's been alive for thousands of years, Odin's a bastard as he always is. It was just really fun, really escapist, and I'm very excited, although a little bit nervous, to see how the film of this turns out eventually, whenever it happens. Then I read an ebook, The Split by Laura Kay. This is one I've seen a lot of people talking about. It was something nice and light-hearted, kind of easy reading. It's a sort of queer breakup story with the main character, her and her girlfriend break up, and then she goes back home and she ends up training to run a marathon, and all to do with sort of finding herself and finding love again. And it was just really kind of light-hearted. It wasn't too saccharine, it was nice and funny, it wasn't too cringy, it was just a really nice, enjoyable read. Also just really nice to read, kind of one of those traditional breakup stories that wasn't very it was nice. Then I read a book that loads of people have been talking about, and I've seen some mixed reviews for since reading it. Leave the World Behind by Ruman Alam. I actually really enjoyed this book. It's a book about a family who go and stay in like a holiday home, and while they're there they don't have like any signal, it's quite far out in the sticks. While they are there, the elderly couple who own the house come back. They say they were driving by, there's been a power blackout, they can't get hold of anybody. They knew this house that was safe because it's their house, you know, so they came there, and it's this kind of meeting of these two families. Loads of weird stuff starts going on, flamingos start landing, deer start coming out of the forest, and nobody knows what's going on because they can't make contact with the outside world. The writing in this is expertly tense. The tension in this just wraps up. I've said the word tension too much long, it's lost all meaning. It's just really tense, really kind of spooky, atmospheric as hell, really nicely done. The criticisms I've seen of it, that it were too open-ended. I get that, but at the same time, I think if we've learned anything from the last 18 months is that we don't know how shit ends when stuff goes weird in the world, when there's any kind of mass world event. We don't know how it ends, and that's kind of the point. So for me, it wasn't too open-ended. I like me an open-ended book, and I think this struck the balance just right for me. Then I tried a book which I'm really sad to have DNF'd, and it's The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Now this, on paper, was so me. It's a Viking set dragon story. I've never read John Gwynne before. I know he's written a load of books about dwarves, and he's kind of quite respected in the fantasy series, and this is a start of a new series, and I was really, really excited. And then I realised it had taken me about 2 weeks to get halfway, and yes, part of that was my reading slump sensibility-ness, but also it just was, for a book that's about Vikings who discovered dragons and all of this shit, it was just really slow and, dare I say, a little bit too dull for my liking. I was halfway through the book, I didn't care about any of the characters, I also didn't really know anything about the characters, and I like a book that kind of shoves you in the beginning and just gives you these characters and you've got to play catch up, but there was nothing kind of making me root for any of the characters. I didn't know enough about why they were where they were, or why it mattered that they were where they were. It did that thing of trying to establish a world mythology, again, based on Vikings and Norse mythology, but not fully true to it, which, again, playful, go nuts. But, as I've spoken about many times before, that difficulty with fantasy or sci-fi of establishing a world, not giving people too much information or not enough information, didn't strike it for me. I just felt bored and didn't care what was going on, and there was nothing pulling me in. And I think I kept going with this book for longer than I should have done, would have done normally, because I was A, in a reading slump and wanted to be reading, and B, because Viking dragons. And the last book I read, which is coming up to nearly 2 weeks ago that I read it now, that's how bad my reading slump has been and my attention span, but I did read Summer Water by Sarah Moss. Obviously I got myself a paperback copy even though I already have the hardback copy because hello, have you met me? Unsurprisingly, I loved this. I love Sarah Moss. Love it. It's about kind of a holiday camp in Scotland, a load of log cabins, a load of families that go and stay on holiday there, and it's raining, it's like apocalyptic style rain, it's just constantly raining, and it's all of these different families that are on holiday, and Sarah Moss, her writing is so incisive and insightful and just beautiful and funny, but without being over the top. She just gets it right every time, and I loved it. I will say, they've reissued all of Sarah Moss's backlist in new covers. And for me, this works quite well that they've not done this paperback in the new backlist covers because obviously none of the others match, and if this one was in the new covers, I would need to go and get all of the others again in the new cover. But from that perspective, I'm surprised they didn't go with the reissue backlist style for this one. And then there's like a marketing in of they all look the same. It was very surprising considering that they did that with Kazuo Ishiguro with the new one, new jacket style, and they reissued all the others in the old jacket style. Just very surprising to me, but I'm not mad at it because now I don't have to go and buy all of her books again. I mean, I don't have to anyway, but... So again, I am very, very excited for what the future holds, getting to work with books again. It means that I am going to feel more like I have a right to engage, which I know is totally ridiculous, but that's the way my brain works. So I am going to do a haul video because, as per usual, even though I haven't been reading, I've certainly been acquiring. I'm going to do a haul video, and I'm also going to do that mid-year freakout tag video because that tag looks fun. So I will see you again soon for one of those. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye!